here is how CNN covered it last night. I told you about it. So let's watch a couple clips and then we'll react. So here is Anderson Cooper, and he brings on somebody who's here to tell you that this still looks bad for the president.
Kirsten, you don't think this is necessarily great news for the president?
I don't, because Nixon didn't get indicted, right? And we know that he obstructed justice. And so what will show up?
Yeah, but you understand the difference here, right? The difference is that if Trump actually colluded with the Russians, there'd be a lot of other people in his campaign that would be part of that conspiracy that Mueller would have also then indicted. But since that he didn't, that means that only Trump did this all on his own. Did he text Putin? How did he do it by himself? So if there's no one else involved, that means there probably isn't. So that's why, again, there's still, it's funny to watch them cling like this, right? Isn't it?
Right. And if somebody had committed a crime, then obviously all those people who were interviewed by Congress and by Mueller would have lied about it to cover it up. But nobody was indicted for lying when it comes to anything to do with a Trump-Russia conspiracy or with obstruction. The things that people got indicted on were basically from Michael Cohen to George Papadopoulos, having to do with them, at least according to their accounts, lying to cover up things that they thought would look bad, but really in the end, they actually made themselves look even worse because it looked as if they had something to hide. When really, if you look at what they actually lied about, they were inconsequential and got us nowhere when it comes to this issue of a Trump-Russia conspiracy theory. Same thing with Michael Flynn, where it's actually not even fully clear what he even lied about and what he pled guilty to that. But in exchange for that, he got let off the hook for far more serious violations when it comes to lobbying with Turkey, which I think explains his perjury plea there.
So somebody's actually going to bring that up, and we're going to go over that one more time because people like to say 35 indictments. There's been 35 convictions about. So we're going to talk because somebody brings that up. But this woman says something funny. Let's watch.
Just to back up to the bigger case, when we're talking about conclusion, what we're talking about is whether or not the special counsel could charge conspiracy to defraud the United States, and that is a high bar.
It's really hard. It's really hard to do this. So it doesn't make the thing that Trump didn't do it. It's just really hard to do it. Yeah. And we always said it was really hard. It's probably not going to happen. We never really thought it would happen. It's really hard. That's what she's saying. These are grown-up people on news shows that sound dumber than I do, high and drunk. That's how bad these people are. That's how desperate they are to cling to their position in society and their job. They don't want to lose their job. Oh, my God, I won't get invited back on. So I thought
they can charge someone with anything. In this case, they have. They charged Maria Butina, this Russian woman who basically committed the crime of being Russian and being Russian in the U.S. at a time when there was this huge anti-Russia mania. They indicted her on this really trumped up lobbying case and, of course, smeared her in the process as a Russian spy, which she wasn't. So they can indict anyone. And so the notion that you can't indict someone for engaging in a conspiracy with Russia, that's a high bar. It's a joke.
That's a joke. And that woman's opinion is a joke, just like CNN is a joke, because we catch them lying here at my show. Okay. So here's another one. I find this guy more annoying than just about anybody. But when he starts talking, I always want to go, "You're killing me, Larry." Anyway, here we go.
Do the investigation he wanted to do. There were no conflicts that rose to the level that had to be reported. On the other hand, I do think it is important to slow our roll a little bit and say,
slow our roll. I love when a guy who looks like that uses a cool hip term. Hey, man, we got to slow our roll, man. Let's slow our roll, all right? Isn't that funny? That's kind of funny. I wish I could think of some more things that are similar that I could say.
What are the facts that Mueller found? If there is a narrative in there, let's wait and see what he found. The idea that, Donald Trump wasn't indicted, so that's a vindication for him. He can't be indicted. Right. So
do you hear these people?
Let's not blow our wads.
Let's slow our roll and tighten our wads. And then he goes, hey, the president can't be indicted. Oh, we're such idiots. We're so stupid. You're right. I wonder why you waited for 3 years to fucking say something like this, Jeffrey Fuckface. Are you kidding me? We can't be indicted. Why have you been sitting on this information? He says this like he's clever or he's smart. And then you hear Who's the guy from Watergate that's on this? All what's his name? I just said his
Carl
name.
Bernstein.
Carl Bernstein. Yeah. Carl Bernstein, again, another guy, a great journalist who was unraveled by Donald Trump's presidency, completely unraveled by Donald Trump's presidency. And you hear him go, yeah. All right, so here's another one. Now here he is. Now watch Carl Bernstein do something that I find despicable. Let's watch.
The overall point is the right one. We do need to know what all the underlying facts here are, and we have to remember what we know so far. And we have voluminous evidence, including guilty pleas, of a lot of people about lying in this investigation.
Well, there's a lot of evidence already. There's no evidence. We've been asking for evidence for 2.5 years, Carl. There is no evidence. That's why they had an investigation, and that's why he just delivered a report. There's no evidence, Carl. And he just goes, there's overwhelming evidence. There's 35 convicted. You see him doing that? To me, that's journalistic malpractice. What would you call that?
Yeah, I definitely think this entire affair is journalistic malpractice. I mean, it's easy to say people have lied. What are they covering up? And it's easy to say 37 indictments. But we need to ask, what were those lies for, and what do those indictments actually say? In the case of the lies, yeah, some people lied in the process of being questioned by investigators. It's easy to catch somebody in a perjury trap. In the case of George Papadopoulos, who actually incited this whole probe to begin with, he lied to cover up his conversations with a professor who claimed to have knowledge of the Russians having compromising dirt on Hillary Clinton. But that turned out to lead nowhere, because the FBI interviewed that professor, this guy Joseph Mifsud, in February 2017. He was not arrested then, and he has not been indicted since, including at Mueller's deadline yesterday. Michael Cohen lied, to Congress, but the way he says it's not the way he says it. He lied it because he wanted to fit what he perceived to be Trump's public messaging about not having business interests in Russia, and he lied about a Trump Tower deal that ultimately never got off the ground. Michael Flynn I've talked about. So it's like, and Michael Flynn's conversations with the Russian ambassador that he was convicted of lying about, all those calls are wiretapped. So that's the reason we know about them. And Did those wiretaps lead to any discovery of any kind of illicit scheme between Trump and Russia for Flynn to lie about? No. So it's like, you can say all these things about, yes, people have lied, but then if you look at the actual consequence of what they led to and what they are, they're nothing. And then all these 37 indictments, they're for process crimes. In the case of Manafort, the only Trump figure to face serious prison time, it's for financial crimes that have nothing to do with Trump, Russia, or the election. It never would have been charged if not for the election. And then you have the indictment of the Russian troll farm workers who put out some stupid clickbait that was compared to Pearl Harbor and 9/11. And then you have the indictment of Russian military intelligence officers. And whether or not you believe the emails were leaked or hacked, the point is there's no evidence and no assertion by Mueller that the theft of those emails had anything to do with the Trump campaign. So we're left with really, yes, some indictments, but in terms of the substance of this issue, which is whether or not there's a conspiracy between Trump and Russia, we arrive at zero.
Very well said, because lots of people, I was just on the phone last night with two comedians up in Reno, and they were saying, because they don't follow as closely obviously as me, and they also are just as amazed at the success of this show. Like, they go, Jimmy, what are you doing? I just love it. What are you doing?
You're telling the truth.
I go, all you got to do is tell the truth. And they're like, and so they're asking me, they go, yeah, but what about Manafort? Wasn't he working for the Russians? So what if people, and I try to explain to them that what he was actually doing was trying to lobby the president of the Ukraine to join the European Union economically and not go with Russia. And so you can explain it better than me.
Well, yeah, and this is a good illustration of why, average people who mean well, but who turn into media and rely on the media for their information are being misled, is because if you look at a place like MSNBC, they will never tell you that Manafort, when he was in Ukraine, was not doing Russia's interests. He was actually lobbying his client, Viktor Yanukovych, the president of Ukraine, to move away from Russia. And that's backed up in Mueller's documentation. That's backed up by somebody who worked for Fusion GPS, the firm that behind the Steele dossier. That's backed up by pretty much everybody. But we don't hear that because that contradicts this conspiracy narrative that places like MSNBC have gotten behind. And so literally the reason why there's this impression of a Trump-Russia conspiracy, even after Mueller returns no indictments for it, is because of just a sustained propaganda effort to get behind it for self-interested reasons of the people that have been pushing it. And it's people like us, Jimmy, who've been pushing back, but there's only so much we can do.
That's right.
And it's especially tough when other progressive outlets are feeling pressured enough to, instead of standing up for facts, to drink the Kool-Aid and to go along, even from a partisan point of view. I mean, even if your only concern is not the truth and honest journalism, but your only concern is defeating Republicans and Donald Trump. I mean, I could get that, but then why then would you want to assist in a conspiracy narrative whose collapse is going to give Trump a massive gift for his reelection?
Because you got it wrong in one aspect. Their mission isn't to defeat Donald Trump. Their first mission is to make sure they defeat the progressives. And so if they weren't pushing a Russia propaganda, Russiagate, they'd have to take an examination of how they cheated the progressives in their last election, committed the hugest election fraud in the history of our country. That's going unexamined, and that's why they're pushing this, because they'd rather defeat the progressive than defeat Donald Trump. That's exactly why this is happening. And I showed on this show just last week that an MSNBC host, Donnie Deutsch, admitted he let the cat out of the bag. He's been saying for 2.5 years, they've all been saying that Trump's a Russian puppet and he's a Manchurian candidate, a traitor to our country. And Donnie Deutsch said, if they nominate Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, I'm going to vote for Trump. Really? You'd vote for a guy you say is a traitor to our country before a progressive? That's how much they hate progressives. So that's where you got it wrong there. And I don't mind correcting you on that one. But their job is not to defeat Donald Trump. Their job is to make sure they keep the money train going and their corporate politics going and defeat the progressive who would upset the money train. That's their mission, correct? Do you think?
I agree with that certainly there are incentives to defeating progressives, and there are personal incentives, because if you do that, then you help sustain your own privilege. And that's why I've called Russiagate a privilege protection racket.
It is.
It's because you're challenging Trump not on anything that can actually threaten Trump and threaten privilege interests in this country, but can in fact benefit privilege interests in this country by ginning up Cold War tensions that are profitable for weapons manufacturers, that are good if you want to get a job at one of these fake think tanks that put out social media studies about how the Russians are attacking us through their bots on social media, something we've talked about. There are so many incentives for towing the party line. And, there's a couple of us who've refused to go along, and, we see the result. I mean, we are consistently proven right, but that doesn't redound into, media exposure or even any acknowledgement from the part of those who've gotten it wrong. As we've talked about, they're just doubling down.
Now we've had you on for a long time. I wouldn't be upset if you left right now, but just for kicks, I'm going to play some of the Keith. I have 4 Keith Olbermann clips, and that I'm going to laugh at. If you want to stick around and laugh at them, you can. Do you want to stick around? You got to go.
Let's do it.
Okay, so here's the first one. I've played this before. It's worth playing again. Here we go.
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup. So far, a bloodless coup engineered by Russia with...
Remember, Aaron, do you remember when Donald Trump, right before the election, they were afraid that Donald Trump wouldn't accept the election results and that he would tell his followers that the election was a fraud, and people were afraid there was going to be violence? Do you remember that?
I do. And then I also remember after Donald Trump won, Hillary Clinton tried to get CIA officials to brief delegates of the Electoral College to not pledge their delegates to Donald Trump and install him as president because of this Russia business.
So the exact opposite happened. It was the exact opposite. The people who were screaming that Donald Trump wasn't going to accept the election results and he was going to turn this place into a riot, those people were the exact people who did the exact thing they said Donald Trump was going to do. This is him doing that. This is Keith Olbermann doing that exact thing. Keith Olbermann is not accepting the results. He's saying it was a fraudulent election. That's what they said Trump was going to say. Can you fucking even stomach that? I can't. It's hard for me to even stomach that.
It's pathetic and but not surprising. All the more reason to ignore these people.
Okay. What's this?
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps
I just
correctly,
can't.
we have
It's just funny. It's just funny every time. It's never not funny. Can you turn it
It's
up,
hilarious.
Arnold, so I can hear it? There you go.
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer
We're not
a
a sovereign
democracy.
nation,
We are no
Aaron.
longer a free people.
Did you know we're not free anymore? We're not sovereign. We're none of that stuff. Except Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to impeach that guy. Isn't that weird? That's weird. Here we go. Let's see what other stupid shit he says. Here we go.
That, quote, the Russians hacked the Republican National Committee's computer systems in addition to their...
So did you? I don't know if you ever heard. This was his. I never heard this conspiracy theory, but maybe you did. And here, listen to this. He has a new one that the Russians hacked the Republicans' database too, but they didn't release it. They're holding it over their heads to make the Republicans do whatever they want. It's just that easy. Watch this.
That, quote, the Russians hacked the Republican National Committee's computer systems in addition to their attacks on Democratic organizations, but did not release whatever information they gleaned from the Republican networks. It is a short leap from that conclusion, and it is anything but a conspiracy theory.
No. This is what the definition of a conspiracy theory, Keith. Because you're doing it doesn't mean it's not. I know you don't like to think of it as you doing that. You're doing it. You're Glenn Beck with the chalkboard right now. You're Sean Hannity with Benghazi right now. That's who you are. This is the definition of a conspiracy theory, fuckface, and you're doing it.
Wondering if the Russians hacked the RNC and have kept what they found there to make sure Trump and the Republicans obeyed. The president of...
That's quite a conspiracy theory, huh, Aaron? Did you ever hear that one before?
That one is just out there. You know, I was thinking, Jimmy, for anybody who has not seen the movie Network, right? That's Howard Beale. That's the Howard Beale character right there.
That
I mean,
guy's
it's
rant
literally,
was
it's like, I recently saw the Broadway production of it, starring Bryan Cranston. And literally, it's like interchangeable between Bryan Cranston playing this unhinged, paranoid cable news anchor and Keith Olbermann there. It's almost like Keith Olbermann is doing a parody of it.
Yeah, Ron made the point, though. He said that, but Howard Beale, his outrage was legitimate.
Howard Beale was more based in fact than Keith Olbermann.
Yes.
That's saying something.
So here he is at the end, and just watch him go off the rails here.
And the Attorney General must immediately appoint a special prosecutor to investigate what Donald Trump knew and when he knew it, and what, if any, collusive links exist now or existed earlier between the Russian Federation and the Republican National Committee. If Trump does grab power, he can try to dismiss that special prosecutor, but he will at least have to get the courts to sanction him. And most immediately, the intelligence briefing proposed today for the Electoral College, what the CIA and the others know, when they knew it, how much the Trump campaign knew, that must be conducted without delay and without redactions. There are no arguments of security or face-saving or intelligence secrecy or national interest that carry any weight now. How much worse can it get by telling America the unvarnished, unprocessed, unredacted truth about this coup? We are already on the precipice of losing the freedom and independence of the nation. He must tell us so that we may defend ourselves. He must tell the electors of the Electoral College so that, microscopic as the chance may be, they could still prevent this cataclysm. There is no time for a full review or a measured analysis or recommendations to prevent interference in our future elections, because permitting Donald Trump to assume the office of president reduces the chance that we will have any future elections. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
Next up, Scotty with the damage report. Raise our shields.
Russian scum. Talk about xenophobia. Can you imagine saying any other? Can you imagine saying
Anything.
Mexican
Oh, my
scum
God.
or Jewish scum? Can you imagine saying that?
Muslim
Russian
scum.
But he
And
was.
of course, where does he come from but MSNBC? And, you know, it's like he makes now his former network look sober by comparison, which is saying.
Yeah. Wow, this guy. Let's listen. There's a little more to this.
As things are today, January 20th will not be an inauguration, but rather the end of the United States as an independent country. It will not be a peaceful change of power. It will be a usurpation, and the usurper has no validity, no credibility, and no authority under the Constitution.
That sounds like what they were afraid Trump was going to do. And now they're doing it screaming, foaming at the mouth.
I never want to hear that guy again, Jimmy.
Okay, you have to hear a little more.
Is a reality that will become the only reality until this country rids itself of Donald John Trump. He is not a president. He is a puppet put in power by Vladimir Putin. And those who ignore these elemental existential facts, Democrats or Republicans, are traitors to this country and will immediately and forever after be held accountable. Resist. Peace.
What a fucking jackass.
And GQ magazine uploaded that on the internet and decided to publish it. Yeah.
It's still up. That's still up. And people say I have anger issues. Yeah, I get angry, but legitimately, I don't get angry at a conspiracy theory that I'm making up on the fly. He's making that up on the fly. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Just one day there'll be a great exhibition at a museum about, like Russiagate ephemera and all the craziness. It'd be a great multimedia presentation, and certainly that gets a display case. I mean, that's just like, that is nuts. I do actually have to sign off, Jimmy.
Okay, buddy. Aaron Mate, everybody check out his work at The Nation magazine. Any place else they should catch you? We have your Twitter handle underneath here.
I appreciate it. I just want to say, Jimmy, as I said in that tweet, thank you for all the work you did. Thanks for pushing back so consistently. You've been a rare voice of sanity in a really insane time in our politics that I'm hoping with the Mueller report, whenever it is submitted, whenever we fully see it, see the full findings, I'm hoping that there is a new era in our politics, and I'm hoping that people will recognize who stood for truth, who stood for the facts, and as we move forward in trying to build an actual resistance to Trump, I hope people can realize, what are the accurate sources of information that they can trust, and you stand above the pack based on what you've done for the last 2.5 years. So I just want to thank you for all you've done.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It actually means a hell of a lot to me. We don't hear that a lot at this show because, as you know, you don't get a pat on the back for getting things right in journalism. And I just want to say, if I didn't know you, I'm so glad for your friendship. When I first saw you interview Luke Harding, I was just like, I got to talk to that guy. And, you've kept me sane. I'm always, whenever I was like, am I crazy? Is this? And I just check. And no, I appreciate you being consistently a measured, sober look at this whole situation. And it's helped me immensely. And so I just want to say thank you for doing that, and great work. Great job.
Thanks, Jimmy.
We're announcing our live dates for 2019. We're going to Ventura, California, Hermosa Beach, California, Tempe, Arizona, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Portland, all over the country. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for tickets. If you'd like to support the show, please join our Patreon or premium membership. We give you hours of bonus content every week. And remember, if you think you're subscribed, you might not be. Check to make sure you're subscribed and click the bell so you get a notice every time we drop a clip. Thanks for your support.